The rain fell hard that night, drenching the cracked pavement of Elm Street and washing away the faint scent of hope that usually lingered around the little diner on the corner. Inside, a single father named Daniel sat by the window, his 10-year-old daughter Lily asleep beside him, her tiny head resting on his arm. His hands trembled slightly as he counted the last few bills in his wallet, $5 and some change. That was all he had left. Rent was overdue, the heating had been shut off 2 days ago, and tomorrow he had no idea how he'd put food on the table. Yet, despite everything, his daughter smiled every morning, believing her dad was a hero who could fix anything. Tonight, Daniel wished he believed that too. Before the story continues, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the magic of doing good even when life feels impossible, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The door to the diner opened with a jingle, and a woman stumbled in. Her clothes were soaked, her hair clinging to her face, and she shivered as if she hadn't eaten or slept in days. The waitress behind. The counter frowned, already busy cleaning up for closing. "We're closing soon," she muttered. But the woman didn't answer. She just sank into the booth across from Daniel, her eyes downcast and empty. Daniel glanced at her, noticing her torn coat, the dirt on her hands, and the faint bruise near her temple. She looked lost, broken, like someone who'd seen too much pain and didn't have the strength to hide it anymore. Daniel's stomach twisted with hunger, but when he saw her trying to warm her hands with her breath, something in him moved. He waved the waitress over. "2 bowls of soup, please," he said softly. Lily stirred awake at the sound of his voice. "Daddy, do we have enough?" she asked sleepily. Daniel smiled, brushing her hair back. "We always have enough to share," he whispered, even though he knew it wasn't true. The waitress brought the food, and Daniel pushed 1 bowl toward the woman. She hesitated, staring at it with disbelief, her lips trembling. "You don't have to," she began, but Daniel simply nodded and said, "Eat. It's cold out there." Tears filled her eyes as she picked up the spoon. They didn't speak much after that. The woman ate slowly, as if savoring every drop, while Daniel pretended not to notice his daughter quietly giving half her bread to her. When the woman finished, she whispered, a thank you so soft it almost got lost under the hum of the flickering neon sign. Then she stood, pulled the hood over her head, and disappeared into the rain. Daniel paid the bill, his last dollar gone. As they stepped outside, the storm had eased, but the chill in his bones deepened. He carried Lily home, whispering that everything would be okay, even though he didn't know if he believed it anymore. That night, as they huddled under an old blanket in their dim apartment, Daniel prayed, not for miracles, but for strength to face another day. The next morning, Daniel woke early to get ready for another long shift at the mechanic shop. He had dark circles under his eyes, hands stained with oil and time, and a heart heavy with worry. As he made Lily's lunch, just a slice of bread with peanut butter, he heard the sound of tires screeching outside. At first, he ignored it, but then a strange silence followed, and Lily's curious voice called from the window, "Daddy, there's a big car outside. Like, really big?" Daniel frowned, wiping his hands on a rag and stepping out to see what she meant. Parked in front of their rundown apartment complex was a sleek black limousine, gleaming under the morning sun. For a moment, Daniel thought it was a mistake. Maybe someone rich had taken a wrong turn. But then, the back door opened, and out stepped the same woman he'd fed the night before. Only now she looked different. Her hair was neatly tied, her face radiant, and her clothes looked like they were worth more than his entire year's rent. She smiled softly when she saw him, and Daniel froze. The contrast was so sharp it didn't feel real. "Mr. Hayes," she said gently, walking toward him in heels that clicked against the wet pavement. I'm so glad I found you." He blinked, confused. You know my name?" She nodded. "You left your name on the diner bill. I had to find you." Behind her, a chauffeur held an umbrella, and two men in suits stood by the car, watching quietly. Daniel's mind raced. Was she here to pay him back? Or was this some kind of cruel joke? "Listen," he began nervously. "You don't owe me anything. I just did what anyone would have done." The woman smiled sadly. "You'd be surprised how few people would." She looked around at the cracked walls and peeling paint of the building. "You shared your last meal with me when I looked like I had nothing. The truth is, I was testing something. My faith in people." Daniel stared at her, not understanding. She took a deep breath. "My name is Rebecca Collins. I'm the CEO of Collins Enterprises." Daniel's mouth went dry. He'd seen that name before, on the side of delivery trucks, in commercials, even on the news. She was one of the most powerful businesswomen in the city. "Last night," she continued, "I'd left a board meeting after realizing how cold and disconnected I'd become. I wanted to see the world through someone else's eyes, to see if kindness still existed when money wasn't involved. So I walked the streets dressed as a homeless woman. People passed me like I was invisible. You were the only one who stopped." Daniel didn't know what to say. The world seemed to tilt around him. Rebecca gestured toward the limousine. "Get in. I owe you more than a thank you." But Daniel shook his head. "Ma'am, I'm just a mechanic. I didn't do it for anything." Rebecca smiled gently. "Exactly why you deserve something." She turned to her assistant. "Bring it." The man handed her a folder and a small envelope. Rebecca extended them to Daniel. Inside the envelope was a check, large enough to cover his rent for years. Inside the folder were papers offering him a stable job as a maintenance supervisor at one of her company's facilities, with full benefits, housing, and education support for his daughter. Daniel felt his throat tighten. I can't accept this," he stammered. "You already have," Rebecca said softly. "Because last night you reminded me what it means to care. You gave me back something no money could buy. Faith." Tears welled in her eyes as she looked at Lily, who peeked from behind her father's leg. "You taught your daughter compassion by example. That's rare, Mr. Hayes. Don't turn away a blessing now." He looked down at Lily, whose innocent smile seemed to reflect the warmth of every struggle they had endured together. For years, Daniel had worked quietly, sacrificing everything so his daughter wouldn't feel the weight of their poverty. And now, standing in front of this woman who had seen both worlds, the streets and the boardrooms, he realized that sometimes miracles came disguised as moments of simple kindness. Rebecca invited them both to visit her office that afternoon. Daniel hesitated but eventually agreed. When they arrived, the skyscraper loomed high, its glass walls reflecting the city skyline. Inside, employees whispered curiously as Rebecca personally escorted the humble mechanic and his daughter through the marble halls. She introduced him to the staff, saying, "This man reminded me why our company exists, to make life better, not just richer." In the weeks that followed, Daniel settled into his new job. It wasn't easy stepping into a corporate environment, after years of manual labor, but Rebecca made sure he was supported. She checked in often, not as a CEO, but as a friend. Lily started attending a good school nearby, her laughter filling their new home, a small but beautiful company apartment that didn't leak when it rained. And though Daniel had never been one for speeches, he began mentoring younger employees, teaching them not just about work, but about humility, persistence, and empathy. Word of his story spread quietly among the staff, becoming something of a legend, a reminder that even the smallest act of kindness can ripple through lives in ways unseen. Months passed, and one morning Daniel found himself standing on the company's rooftop garden, watching the sunrise. Rebecca joined him, holding 2 cups of coffee. "You know," she said, "that night, when you gave me your last dollar, I was ready to give up on people entirely." She smiled faintly. "Now, I've started a new foundation. It's called the Lily Fund, inspired by your daughter. It's going to help single parents get back on their feet." Daniel's eyes widened, and he looked over at her, speechless. "You're naming it after her?" She nodded. "Because her kindness that night, sharing her bread with me, taught me that love multiplies when it's given freely." The two stood in silence for a moment, the city humming below them. Daniel thought of all the nights he'd gone to bed hungry so Lily could eat, all the tears he'd hidden so she wouldn't worry. He realized that every act of faith, every moment of struggle, had led them here. Sometimes, life takes everything from you just to teach you what really matters. Before we close this story, if this journey of compassion, faith, and second chances has touched your heart, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps spread more stories that remind us the world still has good people in it. And before you go, comment below with just one word: kindness. Let's fill the comments with hope and love. As Daniel watched the morning light glint off the distant skyscrapers, he felt a quiet peace settle in his heart. The world could be cruel, yes, but sometimes it repaid kindness in the most unexpected ways. He reached down, taking Lily's small hand in his, and whispered, "See, sweetheart? Sometimes when you give away your last dollar, life gives you something priceless in return." And as the sun rose higher, painting the sky gold, Daniel realized he hadn't lost his last dollar that night. He had invested it in humanity, and the return was more than he could ever count.